time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Warren Bluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day, so join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
Let's not confuse a loss with lack of effort, and I think that frustrates me when I hear that, because that's not always the case. It's an easy cop-out.
I appreciate the compliments and all that stuff, but we've got to keep our nose to the grindstone and handle our business. That's what we got to do.
All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome back into Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Welcome back, Phil. Anybody miss me? Okay. Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic.
My mother said never lie.
Good to be back after 2 days. I got bad news for you, like I used to tell your predecessor anytime I was gone. Once a year for my medical checkup, and for the holidays, I come back, and bad news for you. Rabbis give me another year.
Okay.
So I'm here for another year, at least, okay? So you're stuck with me. Good to have you with us. Hope everybody's had a great week. All the Jewish friends out there, Happy New Year to you.
Hopefully you didn't get caught sleeping in the synagogue instead of praying.
No comment?
See, there was a lot of that tonight.
No
There's a lot of that tonight. Okay.
No comment. Have you ever found a sermon that you couldn't fall asleep to? Okay. I didn't think so. All right.
They kind of get repetitive after a while. It's almost as if they do the same one every year.
It's a great night here on Sports Talk. We're glad you're with us as we cap off the week with you. And thank you, sir, for handling things the last couple of nights. Everything went great with you and Brian.
We had fun. Skip Holt says hello, by the way.
Skip, did he call me Tiger Phil?
He did not call you Tiger Phil.
Good.
There were a lot of people who were wondering why I asked Skip the questions I asked him about with regards to USC, saying that why are you bringing up 13-year-old news? And I'm like, it's relevant. And it's something that really hadn't been talked about publicly by him or anybody else. And the fact that he admitted it not only to me, but to a group of South Carolina media people on a teleconference earlier yesterday, I think is newsworthy.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, is this not his first time back?
It is. It's absolutely
USC since he left.
His first time he's stepping back into the stadium since he left in 2004.
Well, my opinion is, and it's always been this, if Skip had been hired as the head coach, I think he'd have done extremely well at South Carolina. Now, you wouldn't have had Spurrier and everything that came with Spurrier. Mostly good, because he never had a losing season. He had those bowl wins. He had those 3 great years. But did he build you a program, a lasting program?
No, he left it in shambles. He didn't leave it better than where he found it. Yes, it got to levels better than he found it. I don't know if he left it better than where he found it.
Well, Skip was a hot commodity when he left Connecticut. Sure. He had a very good FCS program there, a playoff team, and he agreed to join his father with the understanding that in a short amount of time, because Lou was only supposed to coach maybe 3 years,
right?
Then step aside, build it up, and then let Skip take over with his. He basically brought, I'm not going to say the majority, but several key figures from his Connecticut staff with him. A
lot of them, yes.
And they were going to stay over, and they were going to build it at South Carolina and keep it going and kind of put their roots in there. And of course, his dad threw him under the bus first after a bad stretch. And then, of course, when Mike McGee and they had the fight, the brawl at the end of that last season with Clemson really damaged everybody.
Right.
It really damaged everybody. And I think at that particular time, with Spurrier available and South Carolina's history for going after the glamour shot, and with Lou kind of working as a go-between, knowing that they could get Spurrier at a low, listen, Spurrier was sitting on a $25 million nest egg from the Redskins. Mm-hmm. He didn't need a bunch of money.
No, he didn't.
He signed up for about $2 million a year,
right?
Which was on the cheap for
a
coach of that level. So, they made the move, and it brought South Carolina a ton of notoriety and some winning seasons and a period of time there where they had unparalleled success.
Oh, a lot of prosperity. And again, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to try and sit here and say that Skip Holtz would have done better than Steve Spurrier or vice versa or anything like that. I'm just saying that's a bad look when you tell a guy that is going to be a head coach in waiting, so to speak. Very similar to the situation that happened with Will Muschamp at Texas. He was supposed to be the head coach in waiting, and then basically never got the job because Mac Brown never left and ended up taking that job at Florida. So in my mind, it's just a bad look from an administration that, again, is long gone from here. But at the same time, it's all worked out for all parties involved, and he's had a lot of success at Louisiana Tech.
Yeah, Mike McGee, the athletic director, he did a lot of sneaky things of that nature when it came to people. He was not a great people person.
A lot of people said that over the course of the last couple of days.
Well, no matter where he worked, whether it was at Southern Cal or South Carolina or coaching at Duke, where he was a complete flop, but he was never known as a people person, and he would do things. He did a lot of things. All right, I'm not going to say a lot. He did some things behind the backs of people that you just don't do to people when it comes to loyalty and being straightforward with them. And that's just how he operated.
What did you think about what happened to the former senior associate AD here at USC over at Nebraska, Mr. Eichhorst?
Yeah. I don't know him well. He was one of McGee's lieutenants and didn't know him well. But obviously, look, go back and it's the same story. Just throw Nebraska in the same boat with the likes of Tennessee,
Florida.
And other schools who jettison a coach. They fired Bo Pelini like 66 and 17.
They fired Bo because he was not a good people person. I wouldn't say they did that for anything that he did on the field. He was just bad. In the media, bad with donors. He was just not a good people person.
Well, I mean, I can't attest to that. You're closer to that situation than I am.
That's what I'm telling you.
But the record was pretty good.
No, it had nothing to do with his on-field. It was everything to do with the fact that it was
the record has stunk ever since.
Right.
And now they're probably going to fire Mike Riley with the new AD coming in who wants to put his own guy in there and be wandering even longer. You can go back to even when they fired Frank Solich.
Yes.
I mean, he had a really good record following Tom Osborne, and it wasn't good enough.
He's still at Ohio, I believe.
He is. Yeah. He is. So, all right. So we have got, of course, a dynamite Friday for you. David Shelton will be here shortly. Good night for high school football.
Beautiful weather outside.
Weather's great, but we got some good matchups. Got some really good matchups around the state. So we'll talk about that. Excuse me.
It's because you're drinking that coffee.
Yeah,
again.
Take over for a second.
It's because you're drinking that coffee. You got off the wagon from drinking the coffee, and now you're back on the wagon drinking the coffee. And
I needed it.
You needed it.
I needed it.
It's bad.
We got our picks coming up for you as well. We'll have the football filibuster, but we have a substitute picker tonight.
Oh, we do.
Alan Wilson will be here per usual, but Governor Hodges is overseas. He's in Italy. Last I checked, he was on a gondola, and
those aren't cheap, by the way.
He was floating down a side street in Venice.
I love Venice; one of my favorite cities.
Sipping on some wine and cheese.
Those gondolas,
like a good Tar Heel fan.
I'm telling you, those gondolas are not.
You've actually
cheap.
been on one before?
I've been on one before. They are not cheap.
Okay,
you can get hustled with those.
In his place tonight, he has appointed a state representative for us here, and I've got to go back and find my information.
Is it a
former state house member?
Is it a partisan replacement? Because we have to have both sides of the aisle represented, so to speak.
Boyd Brown. That's who it is. Boyd Brown, former state representative. I imagine that he's on the governor's side of most things, or he wouldn't have picked him.
That's kind of what I was hoping.
Yeah,
I wanted to make sure that everybody was, because we do not want to be accused of being hashtag fake news here. We want to make sure everybody is fair and balanced.
What is fake news? Fake news is nothing but lies. Why do we call it fake news? Who came up with that stupid name for just when you say something that's a lie or report something that's a lie? Now it's called fake news. Just call it a lie.
That actually is accredited to our president. But I won't go there.
No, they were saying fake news before him, weren't they?
Like he was the one who probably coined it,
made it popular.
Yeah,
it's still just a lie.
He has made it part of the American vernacular now.
Lee Sterling will be here in the next half hour for his Sterling picks. He tells us he has been red hot for his clients. He has won all 4 weeks, and on Sunday a 5-0 Sunday for Lee. So jump on that gravy train while you can.
I need some rent money.
Okay, I suggest you listen very closely to him when he joins us.
End of the month.
And let's see, we'll have George Bryan with us from the Golf Links. It's the championship weekend on the PGA Tour. and a whole bunch more here on Sports Talk. Oh, yes, the full Monty on NASCAR, too. We'll be right back. All right, it's a Friday edition of Sports Talk. Everybody's in a good mood, are they not?
Sure.
Let's see. The water line's been fixed. The highway patrolmen have finished their meal and should report on time at USC for directing traffic.
I think they did their POS checks as well. Everything's good there. Point of sale.
Huh?
Not the point of sale. They had problems with their point of sale markers.
Oh, okay.
That was one of the other.
Hopefully they'll be opening the parking lots in enough time so people can get in earlier and avoid the traffic backup.
How much earlier would you want them to get there?
Hopefully the DJ will crank that music up tomorrow, baby. Crank it up.
Those people who said
because you cannot win without a good DJ. I think that has been proven. Gamecocks are 0-1 when the DJ does not live up to standards. Crank it. Can we just crank it up? I want it to sound like I'm at a NASCAR race.
Is that a fact?
With no earplugs. I want that place rocking. If the fans can't make it rock, let's get the DJ to make it rock.
I got a lot of calls on Wednesday because I said, is this just a corn thing? But apparently people were complaining about it more than just you. So I just –
because it's important.
No, it's important.
It's been proven.
What's important is
you must have good DJ service to have a good
getting
football
off
team.
the field on third down.
Not important.
And converting third downs on offense.
It's about that next selection during the timeout because those 25 knuckleheads sitting in the end zone there, they need to feel cool.
Well, you also have
important.
You also can tweet your selections to the DJ. Apparently,
is that right?
You can tweet selections.
I'm going to tweet him a couple. Let's go to David Shelton, get our high school football report tonight and a preview of tonight's high school football games around the state because we've got some good ones lined up. High school football report presented by Farm Bureau Insurance. With new auto insurance rates from Farm Bureau Insurance, you could be saving a whole lot of money, even if you received a quote before. Rates are now more competitive than ever. Get a no-obligation quote today at favrates.com. Yeah, how important is a good DJ to the success of a football team, in your opinion, David Shelton?
I cannot believe you asked me that question, Phil Kornblue.
I can.
I just teed it up for you. I just teed it up for you. Go ahead.
The only time I need a good DJ is when I'm in the club getting my groove on.
Wow.
All right.
That don't happen.
That's a visual I don't really care to try to take on.
If I see David Shelton in the club, I'll run.
I'm going to tweet that guy. Some Garth Brooks and some Journey and see if he'll,
Is it because you have friends in low places? Is that it, David? Is that it?
Well, yeah, you could say that.
I think he should play.
They're in lower places than even Garth Brooks is lower places.
What's that really good female singer from England that everybody loves? What's her name?
Adele.
Yeah, a little Adele would be good.
Yeah,
a little Adele.
Okay, can we talk football?
Sure.
Hey, I checked through the state. We got some really good games tonight. I imagine you really like this TL Hanna Greenwood, two top 10, two top 7, 5A teams, 2 undefeated teams meeting tonight.
Yeah, I mean, and this is another opportunity for TL Hanna to kind of eliminate the doubt. My fellow pollsters, fellow guys on our media poll, don't seem to want to give them a whole lot of credit. I keep voting them number 3. And they don't end up in number 3. But, I mean, they've beaten ranked teams every week, and they're going to play another ranked team tonight. Another good team. I think they'll probably be favored to win, but Greenwood's a really good team. They're undefeated, and it's another opportunity for them to put a feather in the cap, so to speak, because if they win tonight, honestly, I mean, I think they're going to finish undefeated in a regular season. I mean, and I don't see anybody beating them. They'd have to have a letdown.
Now, this Greenwood team, I know, has got really good receiver in Pinckney. What's their quarterback situation like?
Oh, Dre Yarbrough is a good guy, a good quarterback. He's a runner. He's a dual threat guy. He's a runner thrower. He gets the ball out there to Pinckney, but he can also make plays with his leg. Yeah, he's a good player. I mean, he's a veteran guy that's been there a couple of years and knows that offense, and he makes a lot of plays.
Ashley Ridge in Somerville. Ashley Ridge has won the last 2 meetings, but as we saw in the Post and Courier, you think that ends this year?
Yeah, I just think I've seen both teams play. I just feel like Somerville's putting it together a little bit. They've got all their guys back after the fight, back in week 0, whatever you want to call it, against Spartanburg. And they had a veteran defense, and now all those guys are back. And Ashley Ridge is good on defense too, and both teams are balanced offensively. It's got a really good matchup. It's actually, I said today on Bobby Harden's show in Charleston, it's one of the better matchups between these two teams in several years. So I look forward to be a great game. For some reason, I feel like Somerville is just a little bit better.
You go on down the list of games. Of course, the South Point Shelby game tonight, that'll be huge. 2 top teams from neighboring states. South Point just went to Georgia, beat Buford last week. What about this matchup with the Shelby team? We know about Dax Holyfield, the highly recruited linebacker. Do they? And Shelby traditionally has a strong football team.
Yeah, traditionally they're one of the top teams in North Carolina, and from what I understand, they're really good again this year, and they have the great linebacker. It's going to be a great matchup. I think South Point's going to win it. I think South Point, I said this last week, and they may be the best team overall in South Carolina. I'd love to see them play Fort Dorchester, but obviously that wouldn't happen. Almost happened in week 0. They almost had a game worked out. A lot of people don't know this, but I think it was South Point that couldn't make it work. But Fort Dorchester wanted to play them in like an ESPN, early season showdown kind of thing, and it didn't happen. So, but maybe it'll happen in our dreams, and we'll see who wins. But I think South Point wins tonight.
Well, do you think that Darion Kendrick is the best quarterback in the state?
No, I think Darion Kendrick might be the best athlete in the state. I think he's a capable guy that could play multiple positions at the next level. And that's not to say he can't play quarterback. I don't think he's going to Clemson to play quarterback, considering, the guys they got there that play quarterback now. But
and the one that's coming next year.
Yeah, he's certainly a good quarterback, but he's a really good athlete. Can make plays with his feet. He's strong, athletic, fast. He may be, and he may, depending on who you ask, he's the number 1 prospect in the state. Some people say Joyner, some people say him. But it doesn't really matter. They'll both get their opportunities at the next level.
I know he has no eligibility left, but can Marcus Lattimore coach up that Heathwood Hall team for Porter Gowd?
I got asked that question earlier, and I was like, if he suits up, they got a shot, but I don't think he's going to play. And I don't know that they have enough players yet. I want to give Marcus a year or two to some of those kids in Columbia to find their way over to Heathwood. And like they have at Ben Lippin or the Hammond in the past, maybe he'll be able to cut into that talent pool. But, Porter Gowd's the better team. Now, the one thing I would worry about with Porter Gowd, it's back-to-back weeks on the bus to Columbia. Sometimes that wears on high school kids, but they have better players right now, so they should win the game.
Will my Whitmire Wolverines get to 3-3 against Bethune-Bowman?
I like their chances. I like the Will Whitmire Wolverines.
Will's Whitmire Wolverines. I love it. We have alliteration.
Yes, yeah.
It took us to week 5. We finally found the right connection, I think.
But I think they win tonight. Of course, I wouldn't call your bookie or anything, but I think they're going to do fine.
I don't think my bookie takes South Carolina high school line.
Hey, one more real quick, about 40 seconds. Couple of undefeateds down in the lower levels. Lee Central at Chesterfield.
Well, Lee Central actually got beat. They got beat Monday night. They played a game Monday night against Buford.
Okay.
Buford, South Carolina.
Formerly undefeated.
Yeah, but yeah, that is one of the bigger games in that level. And I think Lee Central might take another loss, to be honest with you. And one big news note, I don't know if it's been tweeted. I haven't tweeted it yet. I was kind of waiting, but it looks like Cane Bay quarterback R.J. Roderick is going to miss the rest of the season. It looks like he's injured and not going to play the rest of the year. So
the kid that's committed to USC.
Yes, that would be the one. The one that plays quarterback for his team, but is going to be a safety. It's a back issue that started in track. He's a triple jumper. Started in track. He thought it was better. It's obviously not.
Okay.
And
all right, David, we got to go, man. Thank you for the heads up. We'll talk to you later. Back in a moment. while Governor Hodges is out and about in Italy, drinking some really good wine and eating some really good pasta, probably spaghetti with big meatballs.
Should bring some wine back for us.
And I imagine in Italy their favorite sauce is ragu.
Incorrect.
Wouldn't you think?
That's incorrect. It's very incorrect.
Let's do the football filibuster anyway, as we welcome in Attorney General Alan Wilson and pinch hitting, personally selected by Governor Hodges, former State House Representative out of Fairfield County, Boyd Brown. Mr. Brown, how are you?
I'm doing well, guys. Hope you are.
We are doing outstanding. Thank you for joining us. Did you get any sort of directions from the governor on how to do this thing?
Don't pick against Clemson right now. I think that's what he's saying.
Don't pick against Clemson.
That's right.
Now,
and don't mess it up.
What is your personal leaning, by the way, between
my personal leaning is South Carolina and whoever is playing Clemson.
And whoever's playing Clemson. Gotcha. Okay.
He's one of those.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
General Wilson.
Unabashed hater of the Clemson Badgers.
General Wilson, how are you, sir?
Well, I'm doing well, guys, and I'll just be the first to say that this is supposed to be a fair and balanced show, but I'm glad to know that y'all aren't fair and balanced, and you're not representing both sides because y'all seem to always have two Gamecock fans picking these teams.
Well, this is the doing of Governor Hodges, okay? This is really his segment. It's the only way he can keep his name in the news in the state of South Carolina is through us, and so we let him make these decisions.
Well, I appreciate his partisanship on this. I really do.
Well, we're glad to have the two of you with us. Last week, the governor went 3-2. Alan, you went 2-3, so the governor has a one-game lead. He's 10-5. You're 9-6. So, Boyd, you're right. You've got to protect the lead for him.
Well, I did that on the golf course this afternoon with the crowd I was playing with. We protected our lead. So, hopefully we just carry that over into this.
Where'd you play?
We're down at Foley's Island. We play at the Heritage this afternoon.
Oh, very nice. Very nice indeed. Yeah, great weather for it. Yeah. Nice. While the rest of us we're sweating away in our various business locations, you're out having fun. But you know what? You deserve it.
Well, I'm a former politician, so I don't have to worry about those things anymore. And Alan is that's what he was doing. But we plan an annual trip every year, and this is the week. Well, this is the weekend we do it. And so hoping the Gamecocks can pull us through without me there and the rest of the guys there. But looking forward to some good games tomorrow.
You want to start in Nashville? Shall we start in Nashville?
Well, let's do this. Let's go with General Wilson leading since he is trailing 9-6 to 10-5. And again, Boyd, just so you know, we're picking against the spread here, so keep that in mind as you make your choices. You got a point spread to deal with. So, General Wilson, we'll start with you, as Will mentioned, in Nashville, Alabama and Vanderbilt, with the home team getting 18.5.
Well, first off, I don't think you're going to find anybody who thinks Alabama's not going to win this by multiple touchdowns. But you know what? I've been impressed with Vanderbilt. They're 3-0. They're playing really good ball. I think Vanderbilt, while I do believe they're going to lose this one, but I do think going into this game 3-0 with a home court advantage, I think they'll lose it by less than 18 points. They might lose it by 2 touchdowns, but I think they'll take the spread. So I'm going to go with Vanderbilt for the points.
What say you, Mr. Brown?
It's that 3:30 CBS game. I think the Saban's got his boys ready to roll tomorrow. I think Alabama covers the spread tomorrow.
I agree with you. I think this is one of those games where Alabama says, "What? You think Vanderbilt can play with us?"
Sneaky venue, Corn. Sneaky venue.
Come on, it's Commodore Stadium, 35,000 max.
Small venues. It's a little weird.
Been there, seen that. Let's go to Mississippi State at Georgia. Who will be the better Bulldog coming out of this with the home dogs laying 4.5? General Wilson.
Listen, I think Mississippi State woke up the country last week. I think everyone's looking right after that LSU game thinking, wow. And I do think they're a very good team. But I'm gonna think that Georgia's gonna wake up. I think that huge win against LSU last week has got Georgia ready. And I think the points are Georgia by 4.5, and I think Georgia can cover that at home. So I'm gonna go with Georgia for the points.
Boyd, what do you feel about Between the Hedges?
I have a lot of things. General Wilson has on that one, thinking kind of along the same lines. I think Mississippi State comes off a big win, and they are overconfident and go into a tough road game at Athens, and Kirby Smart's guys get it done.
All right, so you want Georgia laying the 4.5 there? I don't know. The way Mississippi State's defense handled that LSU running game and kept guys under control, I could see him doing the same thing against that Georgia running game.
I love Mississippi State.
And that quarterback is something else at Mississippi State. All right, let's go to the ACC. Florida State finally gets to go back to work. They're home, laying 12.5.
Big number.
Against NC State. That's a juicy number there. What do you think, General?
I struggled with this one for a little bit, but it's at home, and I'm going to go with Florida State for the points.
Florida State laying the 12.5. Mr. Brown, what do you think?
I'm right there with them. I struggle with this one. NC State is just, I hate saying this, my Gamecocks could beat them this year. I'm not quite sure what type of team we're dealing with here. So I'm going to have to go with Florida State, even with the backup quarterback situation going on down there. I still feel pretty good about Florida State on that.
To Death Valley.
I was going to say, I think we'll know a little bit more about Florida State in this quarterback situation because he's facing a really good defense at NC State.
Mm-hmm. Sure. To Death Valley, Clemson hosting Boston College. The line -34 in favor of Clemson. General Wilson, do you like Clemson to cover the 34?
Yeah, I like the advice the governor gave Boyd, and I'm going to follow that advice. Don't pick against Clemson. Like I said, and this is a diehard Gamecock fan saying this. I've been really impressed with what Dabo's done up there. He's built a powerhouse program, and I think Clemson's going to cover. I picked against him the first week, and I was wrong, and I'm going to go with Clemson this week.
So Clemson laying the 34.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I don't disagree, to be honest with you. How about you?
Way to go, Corn.
Well, yeah. When we get to our picks, you'll see what I've got to say.
Gotcha.
Boyd, what do you think?
The governor gave me advice on that one, and as much as I'd like to ignore that advice, because personally, I don't think Clemson covers that spread. But I'm gonna, since these are his picks, I'm gonna follow his advice and go with Clemson covering there. But personally, besides that, I think Boston College beats the spread on that.
Okay.
But since this is Governor Hodges, give him Clemson.
Okay. Boyd, just how much do you dislike Clemson? Just wondering.
No, it's, when Notre Dame and Clemson played each other, I told somebody I was pulling for a natural disaster, and we had the 100-year flood. We had the 100-year flood, and I said, you probably don't need to do that. It's a great school. It's a great school. My brother went there, but I just, something about that orange.
I mean, you never voted when you're in the House, say, to cut off funding to Clemson or anything like that, did you?
To build a privatizer at one point.
That's funny.
At this rate, though, the legislature's going to privatize all our higher education.
Oh, goodness.
Give them, but anyway, that's another story.
All right, our last game in Columbia after the disaster of last week. Gamecocks favored again. Vegas, do you know what you're doing? 9.5. General.
Man, listen, I'm still hurting. This last week was painful for me. I don't have the words right now, but here's the thing. I'm not going to pick against the Gamecocks at home against LA Tech. I just can't do it. So I think Carolina's going to win. I'm very concerned with the loss of Debo. Obviously, we were exposed last week. There were some certain weaknesses that I have a lot of faith in Coach Muschamp, but I believe that our Gamecocks will bounce back this week. We will cover before we go back into SEC play again. Okay, Boyd, I need you to pick real quick here, please, sir. Okay, I'm going with the Gamecocks. Really struggle with it. It's going to be tight, but at home, I think the boys get it done. Bounce back weekend for the Gamecocks. Hey, guys, we thank you so much. We appreciate it. Boyd, thank you for stepping in. I'm sure we'll talk to you again. General, as always, we appreciate it. We'll be back.
right, thanks very much to General Wilson and former State House Representative Boyd Brown.
And Mr. Brown didn't like Pickens County, apparently.
Apparently not. He'll never be invited up there for anything. I can promise you that, which will be fine with him because he's happy just being with his game.
I tried to make my mea culpa to the Clemson Nation with my weekly column this week with Will's Last Word.
When you picked against him
from last week,
you've learned a very hard lesson. I tried to tell you.
I said I'm never picking against them ever again.
Pay attention.
Ever.
That's what I said last year. They're never losing again in the history.
Never picking
now,
against them.
I will say this. There is a man out there who has claimed the world will end tomorrow. So my prediction was that Clemson would never lose again until the end of time. Now, they did lose once to Pittsburgh, so that's the only time I've been wrong. But this guy's right, and the world does end tomorrow. Could mean Clemson's going to lose to Boston College.
That's not good.
Let's find out, professionally speaking, from somebody who can attest to all of what we're talking about. That is Lee Sterling of Paramount Sports, as I mentioned earlier in the show. For those of you getting his information behind the scenes, he has been red hot. A 5-0 sweep on Sunday. You can't deliver much better than that for your people.
No, we went 4-0 last week on the show. So you need a few breaks here and there, but actually in the NFL games, first time ever went 5-0, and not one game was within double digits. So we like those. We like those, what we call rocking chair games.
Yes, you don't have to sweat them, right?
Wait, and did I hear correctly? Someone picked against Clemson last week on your show?
That was me, Lee. I'm sorry.
Oh. Wow.
He's still kind of new around here, Lee. He's still trying to figure things out.
You should get him one of those hats that says John Q. Public.
All right. Well, I'm glad you had a great week. Yes, 4-0 on the air and then 5-0 for your clients. That's fantastic. Tell folks how they can reach you over the weekend.
Well, always check out the website, ParamountSports.com. A lot of free stuff there. You know, let's say there's a game you want to see me break down and predict, and we're going to go over the games that your listeners care about. You know, some other big ones around the country that could involve teams that Clemson could play down the road in the Final Four if they keep rolling. You know, teams like Penn State, they're taking on Iowa, Oklahoma State, and TCU. Those videos are up and available. And where it says free pick sign up, just put your email in there, and we'll email you a free selection each and every week. We've gone over 59% on those over the last decade. So, and those are just the freebies, ParamountSports.com. And then if you want to get involved and get the games that I personally play, we've got a 2-week package, starter pack. From now through Monday, October 2nd, you're going to get 12 to 15 games each week, just $247 if you use coupon code SAVE100 at ParamountSports.com.
All right, let's get to some of your picks for us for this weekend. Let's begin with that Florida-Kentucky game. Whew, the Gators, of course, they dodged a big one last week. Kentucky came in and thumped South Carolina. So Kentucky's starting to get that feeling like they're for real.
I like some of the elements that this team has, Kentucky, playing better defense, less breaks in their defensive secondary. Benny Snell, nice running back, running in, catching the ball out of the backfield. Tight end C.J. Conrad looks good. But they just don't have many down-the-field threats. And I think you have to push the ball down the field and hit on a couple big plays in a game if you want to beat this Gator team. Felipe Frank's getting a little bit better. I think it's a work in progress here. I mean, when the team's beating you 31 straight times, I think it gets in your head too. So I think these kids are walking around campus all week, and almost everyone they see is talking about the game. And I just think that pressure is too much here. I'm going to take Florida. Just like last week, everyone was playing Tennessee. That line moved down, and people are like, well, how can Florida be favored by more than a touchdown? I'm getting a field goal in that game. Well, turned out they end up winning by 6. So sometimes if the line doesn't look right, it's probably for a reason. I like Florida again, 27-20.
All right. What about Clemson, BC? You've got the Tigers with a line of laying 30. They cover that?
Well, how about this? This line's moved up to 34.5 points now. So here's what's happened. I mean, they're coming off that big win. They played extremely well. They remember last year's game where they won 56-10. They did anything they wanted. They watched film of Boston College fall apart against Notre Dame. They're just going to go through the motions, play a lot of players. They're going to win the game 40-10. BC gets a backdoor cover. We move on to next week.
All right. And the Gamecocks, after that loss, trying to rebound against La Tech. You've got them with a line of laying 8.
Yeah, without Devo Samuel, I mean, that's a big loss. The onus here is on Jake Bentley to take over a Chiefs team now. They've also got to get that stagnant running game, 48 yards per game less than last year. They need to get that on track here. Jamar Smith for La Tech, their quarterback, he was picture perfect in the fourth quarter in their upset win over Western Kentucky. I don't think he can do it when he has to step up here in class. And South Carolina takes care against these non-conference opponents. 15-6 run against the spread here. I like South Carolina 31-20.
Your game of the week, Florida State against NC State. Seminoles double-digit favorites.
Yeah, we're going to find out about this new quarterback, James Blackman, in a hurry. We've waited 3 weeks for this, but it's going to be an interesting game. And they've got a lot of horses, and North Carolina State always gets up for Florida State. In fact, they've covered 13 of the last 15 games. So we're going to find out whether this great defense of Florida State is enough, or can North Carolina State work that magic and maybe get an upset win. Just call 800-400-9741 for the free game. Or, like I said, always check us out online, ParamountSports.com.
Hey, my friend, always great talking to you. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you. Lee Sterling, our Sterling picks here on Sports Talk.
I think he gave us a hint of where he's leaning with that little stat about 13 of the last 15 covered for NC State.
Absolutely. Let's go to our picks now. Here are your picks from your Sports Talk panel of gods.
Oh.
Alabama, Vanderbilt. Let's see. Kind of a mixed bag here.
I just don't like that number, Corn. I don't like that number.
You're taking Vandy.
I don't like the number.
Matt, the newsman's taking Vandy. And Kev Cohen is taking Vandy. You're all desperate. Alabama will crush Vanderbilt. Mississippi State, Georgia. Again, kind of a mixed bag here. You're taking Georgia.
I like the Bulldogs.
Yes, you do.
I know they're both Bulldogs.
That's so sad. That's just weak. That's just so weak. That's like a shank off the tee with a 7-iron. Pro is taking Georgia. Bobby Hart and the Big Kahuna, the leader at 11-4, 4-1 last week. He's taking Georgia. Everybody else taking Mississippi State. I love the quarterback, Mississippi State. I think their defense can slow down Georgia's running game. Dan Mullen's the man. NC State, Florida State. Only Matt the newsman and Kev Cohen are taking the Noles. The rest of us are taking State. That line is too juicy.
It's very, very juicy.
To pass on.
Very juicy.
Clemson and Boston College. Never pick against Clemson, people. Kev Cohen did. Bobby Harton did. Bobby wouldn't pick Clemson if they were playing the North Koreans. I'm serious. He'd take the North Koreans and would pray for a victory. Clemson will annihilate Boston College. They're terrible. They're terrible.
Yeah, I mean, they've talking to their radio voice yesterday. He didn't seem too confident.
No, they got a redshirt freshman quarterback and a true freshman center going to try and snap the ball in that stadium. You can look for a lot of illegal procedures, motion penalties, things like that against Boston College.
56-10 was the score last year, by the way.
Yeah, this will not be close.
It's a walk.
I mean, will it be not close 34 points? Yeah, I think Clemson will probably have it covered near halftime.
It's a walk.
USC La Tech.
Really?
I'm taking the Gamecocks one more time, you people.
I'm blindly taking the
Get
Gamecocks.
That DJ jacked up and playing that music loud. I want to hear it over in Olympia. Gamecocks laying 9.5. Pro's taking La Tech. Matt's taking La Tech. The rest of us are taking the Gamecocks, so we shall see. I think it's bounced back. Welcome home, Skippy. It could have been yours, but it wasn't. Mike McGee, top of the hour.
Now back to Sports Talk, South Carolina's most listened to sports talk show for more than 30 years. More of your calls are coming up on Sports Talk. Hit us up at 800-956-7266. These guys, they never sleep. Check them out on the web at SportsTalkSC.com. Now, more of Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Our ice cold Cox. Cold cocked them. Go Gamecocks!
We good? Is everybody turned on?
Oh.
I'm not a smart man.
You know, you make a bad call and you say, oh, dumbass, why did I do that? Maybe somebody else could do it better. Dumbass.
Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Bill Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
All right, we are back. A busy Friday night here on Sports Talk. George Bryan III coming up in just a moment as we wrap up the championship weekend of the PGA Tour. Let me give you a quick rundown on our recruiting news heading into this weekend. Defensive back C.J. Smith of West Palm Beach, Florida, will be at USC tomorrow for the La Tech game. He's a former Florida commitment, has an official with Oklahoma October 6th and Ole Miss October 20th. I'm not sure if this is official or not. He had told me at one time he would maybe make this an official visit, but I don't know for sure. But I do know he is coming in this weekend. As for other football officials of note this weekend, USC target defensive back Israel Mukuyamu, Bossier City, Louisiana, is going to Indiana. Another USC target, linebacker Dax Holyfield of Shelby, North Carolina, going to Florida State. And Irmo defensive end Trajan Jeffcoat scheduled to visit Missouri. USC target defensive back Savion Smith, Mississippi Gulf Coast Junior College, picked up offers from Ole Miss and Mississippi State. Defensive end Joe Bolatepeli of Wake Forest, not lined up officials yet. Says a good chance that South Carolina will get one. He likes the Gamecocks to this point. They have offered. They did so back in late August, and they are keeping in touch. And they're telling him that he can certainly play for them. But he's got good offers: Maryland, Rutgers, Syracuse, Louisville, North Carolina, Georgia, Wake Forest, Michigan State, NC State, Arkansas, East Carolina, and Miami. He did say South Carolina is high on his list. Clemson offered 2019 offensive lineman Pierce Quick, Trussville, Alabama. He's an Alabama commitment. Clemson will host another of its basketball targets this weekend for an official, 6'7", Hunter Tyson of Monroe, North Carolina. Tyson has also visited Davidson, and he told us earlier this month his decision would come down to the Tigers and the Wildcats. He averaged 27 points and 10 rebounds per game last season. USC women's coach Dawn Staley has a pair of highly recruited prospects scheduled for officials this weekend. 6'2" Aquira DeCosta of Sacramento, 5'11" Kristen Williams of Little Rock, 6'6" Zion Williamson of Spartanburg Day, making his first official this weekend at Kentucky. Also scheduled for Duke, UCLA, Kansas, and possibly North Carolina. He's taken unofficials to Clemson and USC. And also this weekend, Clemson target point guard Anthony Nelson of South Kent, Connecticut, will visit Dayton, scheduled for Seton Hall next week, and Clemson the following weekend. USC target 6'8" Semi Shitu of Vermont Academy.
You always stumble over that one.
I just have to kind of hold my jaws together. Has set 3 officials: Vandy, October 6th, Arizona, November 3rd, and North Carolina, November 10th. He's not sure if he'll take more visits during the season or afterwards. He told 247 Sports USC is the only other school he's considering right now. Clemson offered 2019 7-foot center Balsa Koprivica of Windermere, Florida. Assistant coach Steve Smith was at the school, Windermere Prep, to scout him and offered him.
Interesting.
Balsa Koprivica and Semi Shitu. And Clemson offered 2019 6'5" Marcus Watson of Clemens, North Carolina.
I was trying to see how that looked.
It looks like it sounds. It looks like it sounds.
I think you're making it look more complicated than it really is. Koprivica.
Oh, you're talking about Koprivica.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about Shitu.
No.
Koprivica.
Yeah. You're bad with the Eastern European names that aren't pelagic. That's the problem.
True that. You know what? They just don't name people George anymore, do they, George?
Oh, they better.
They should.
They oughta.
They should name them George, dadgummit, because they did it 3 times in your family.
Yeah, more than that. It's easier when you just use one name. You just don't. It's much easier that way.
You're like George Foreman. Didn't he name all his sons George?
Oh, absolutely.
He had like 6 of them. Are you in Atlanta?
Actually, not yet. I am standing at Riverside Golf Center right on I-20. It's on the Broad River, and so this is – I'm at a golf facility, just not at East Lake. Not yet. Not yet.
So we got a three-way tie at the top, George. Justin Thomas, Paul Casey, Webb Simpson, and a couple of others also one back at 6 under. This is still a wide-open Tour Championship.
Oh, and I tell you, keep your eye on John Rahm. This young man is really hungry. He's really, really good. And that golf course sets up just perfect for him. And it's also, Patrick Reed, it's a bit of a home course situation for him. And I'll tell you what, isn't it cool to see the South Carolina boys play so good, Dustin and Kevin? They're both sitting right there in the middle of it. My favorite is still Dustin. I think he's going to play great on the weekend.
Yeah,
he's good.
He's 3 under. He had 69 today. Kisner is 4 under. He had a 68. So when you talk about DJ, what do you think, he has to do in terms of managing his game over the next 2 days to win this thing?
I think what he does is just keep doing what he has been doing, and that's driving his golf ball. And his head, he's extremely cool-headed now, and as patient as he can be. And then just keep hitting those good putts. If his putter gets a little bit warm, he lights it up. He runs away with it because he hits it that good. That golf course is just a perfect setup for him, and he's got plenty of experience there. And that's one thing some folks kind of overlook is to see the subtleties and details. If you look at that leaderboard, those guys at the top, they do have they've been there several times, except for Rahm. Rahm hadn't been there as much, but I like his chances. Dustin's my favorite. Kevin Kisner, he knows that course extremely well. And Saturday and Sunday, tomorrow's moving day, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Dark horse Xander Schauffele, maybe the guy who won at Greenbrier?
There's no question. I watched him last week. Chicago, no question. This young man is very special. But again, the details around that golf course, the veterans, the ones that have seen it, they have the advantage. There's so many subtleties, and the grain. It's you see on TV, tricky. The veterans have the advantage, and Dustin's been there a lot. So that I'm sticking with the Jordan Spieth. Justin Thomas, by the way, this young man is ice cold. He doesn't get rattled, and if he happens to stay on his game, he's going to be tough. He could easily run away with it. He's just extremely special, but he still hadn't been there as much as some of the veterans. I'm going with the veterans this weekend.
He's 3 under. Jordan Spieth 3 under after a 70. Kyle Stanley's 3 under after a 73. Russell Henley is 2 under after a 71. So it's a tight leaderboard. Scores aren't particularly low, 7 under after 2 rounds. Are they going to put the screws to them here in the last 2 rounds and really make the course as difficult as they can get it for a championship type event?
If I were to guess, and that's kind of hard to do with a PGA Tour, they like a show, and they've been kind of lenient. I've been surprised at the FedEx Cup setup. Some of the flags, some have been gettable, and the tees aren't incredibly difficult. I think the end of the season interest. I think they'll allow the players to play some golf, and I think they'll make it accessible. But you never can tell. You never can tell.
This is true. Real quick, got about 30 seconds. Anything in the state you want to hit on very quickly?
Hey, I mentioned last week that South Carolina has players representing, and I'll be talking next week in the USGA. It's the Women's South Carolina Golf Association. And hey, I know that's music. So what I'm going to do is, and I'm losing service right here. I'm sorry, I'm getting some feedback.
Okay.
But I'll be talking about women's South Carolina golf next weekend. Tee 'em high, but shoot 'em low, man.
All right. And get out of George's way tomorrow. Go to a football game. Leave that fairway wide open for George. That's why he loves football Saturday. We'll be right back. All right, we're back with you, Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, Brian Leonard on this Friday night, brought to you by South Carolina Electric Cooperative. Of course, the Electric Co-op's doing a great job, sponsor of this year's annual Touchstone Energy Cooperatives Bowl. Find out more about what co-ops are doing across the states. Visit ecsc.org and save the date, December 9th, 2017, Touchstone Energy Cooperatives Bowl. You'll see a lot of high school football players who from that game will move on to the college ranks. I know our good friends at North Greenville get a lot of players who play in the Shrine Bowl and in the North-South game. Coach Jeff Farrington of the Crusaders joining us now because they've got a big game coming up tomorrow against a nearby rival. It's becoming a very good in-state rivalry game. Limestone, North Greenville. Coach, how are you?
I'm doing great, Phil. Appreciate you having us on.
Yes, sir. Beautiful time up in the mountains, I'm sure. 7 o'clock kick tomorrow night at Yount Stadium. And you got a little bit of a rivalry game coming from your folks about, 25, 30 miles down the road in Limestone. They're having a good year. You're having a good year. Should be an excellent matchup.
Yes, sir. We're looking forward to it. It's been a long week, and look forward to getting out on that game field tomorrow night and see kind of how we fare against a very good Limestone team.
How do you guys manage the emotions, Coach, of just an upset victory that you had last week over Albany State and just kind of going into a rivalry game like this, making sure that not only are guys on their P's and Q's, but they have their emotions in check?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. I mean, we're kind of we say this all the time that it's so true. We're a work in progress, and we moved into the game last week. We came off a loss up at Lenore Ryan, and we had to go back on the road. We had to go down to Southwest Georgia and play Albany State. So we kind of wanted to get better, and we knew we had a tall task there. And we came out fast, and now each week's its own week, and we tried to tell the guys, hey, we're 0-0 this week, so it's a new challenge, and each team in college football presents different defense, different offense, different special teams, so you kind of got to lose yourself in the game plan and your preparation throughout the week preparing.
Will Hunter, I mean, he must be 30 years old. It seems like he's been playing for you forever up there. Is he having a good year for you in your mind to this point, giving you what you need from that quarterback position with what he can do?
No question. Will was a first-time starter for us last season and, played 14 games and answered the bell every week. And he's been our guy for 2 of the 3 weeks and has played well. And we look forward to hopefully him to continue make some progress tomorrow night against Limestone. And he's seen a lot. He's played a lot of snaps and seen a lot of things happen on the other side of the ball. So hopefully he'll continue to draw on that experience and he'll continue to gel offensively.
I'm always fascinated, Coach, by teams that kind of have multiple options at running back, and that's certainly what you have with Tracy Scott and Ashton Hurd. Tracy kind of more of the big play guy, but Ashton, of course, has his big plays in him as well. What have you seen out of those guys you like, and how do you handle just sharing the load with those two?
Well, first you got to have guys that are unselfish, and those 2 are definitely unselfish, as well as a couple other guys back there at the running back position. And there's only one guy that's going to get the ball in their hands at a time, and those guys play off each other very well. They both run very hard. However, their styles are a little bit different, and they both have the ability to break tackles. And we certainly need that every time they get the ball in their hand. And somebody asked me that question earlier this week, and but the big thing for us is it starts up front with those offensive linemen. To be able to have production at the running back position, you got to get hats on hats and open up some holes, and we were able to do that last week.
Talking with Jeff Farrington from North Greenville, Crusaders and the Saints tomorrow night up in the mountains above Greenville. Coach Fury's doing a heck of a job with that Limestone team in just a couple of years there. He's really made them competitive. He's got some good players. I believe the quarterback is considered one of the best players in the SAC. What do you think of this team overall, and what do you see of them on film?
Well, they play extremely hard. Number one, they play together. They're defensively, they continue to improve. You mentioned the quarterback. He's an outstanding athlete. He's got a very strong arm. He got his first action last year. Played a little bit against us, then he came out early in the game. Not sure if he was a little banged up, so we didn't see him the whole game. But he's playing well. He can create big plays for them. They've got very good skill people. They're improved up front, offensive line-wise. They've got good size, and, they know what they do. They do not get away from their game plan. They call a good game. They are multiple defensively and play very aggressive and just play very hard. They won 2 close games, fourth quarter games. We tell our guys all the time, these games are going to fourth quarter, and you win those close games, that just develops confidence. So they've got a very confident team coming in to play us tomorrow.
I know you got a game plan, coach, and we'll let you go after this one, but what's the biggest thing that's in your control that you guys need to have happen or overcome in order to get yourself in the win column this weekend?
Well, we've got to protect the ball. And, one thing we would like to be able to do is take that ball away. We want to increase our getting turnovers on our opponents. And we haven't been able to get those. We're young in some spots defensively, and we're trying to get in the right spots, and we still have to make plays. But, obviously ball security and getting the ball back for our offense. We were able to improve last week on our ball possession, which helped us against that opponent. So anytime you can do those two things and just play hard, then you have a chance. And that's what we always want to do is line up in that fourth quarter and have a chance to make 1 or 2 more plays in the opponents.
Well, it should be an excellent game between these two clubs from the upstate of South Carolina. Good rivalry building between you two as well. So good luck. We thank you for being with us. We'll talk to you again down the road and look forward to seeing you.
Well, Phil, thank you, man. You got us on Friday night now. I mean, we're cutting into this high school time. These great coaches and great high school teams, this is their night. And so I certainly don't want to take away from that because you guys do a great job of covering that. And, man, South Carolina's loaded with talent and loaded with a lot of great coaches.
No doubt about it. We thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Take care. Bye-bye. All right, Jeff Farrington from North Greenville. Want to mention the other games coming up around the state this weekend. Of course, South Carolina State got things rolling last night. Man, I thought they were going to win that game at North Carolina Central. That was a big MEAC game, a good chance for State to jump on top. Had a 21-7 lead, and then Central just kept coming back, kept coming back. Ended up winning by 5. So you've got Coastal Carolina home to Western Illinois tomorrow. Furman goes up to Colgate. Gardner-Webb and Wofford over in Spartanburg.
Yeah.
Charleston Southern playing Point University. Presbyterian hosting Cumberland. By the way, that's that Charleston Southern game's in Charleston. It's their home opener. Presbyterian home to Cumberland. Newberry, a big SAC game for them against Carson Newman. Both teams are 0-1 in the South Atlantic Conference, so they need a win. Benedict at Fort Valley State. And we mentioned, of course, you just heard the coach talking about North Greenville and Limestone.
And Coastal taking on Western Illinois as well, I believe.
Yeah, I said that.
Okay.
You should listen to the show.
I do listen to the show.
Listen to the show. You might learn something.
I listen to the show.
How did you not hear me say just a minute ago Coastal Carolina playing Western Illinois?
I was too wound up on what you said before.
You know what you were doing? You were
Greenville.
staring at your own picture. That's what you were doing.
That's not what I do.
You were looking at yourself.
That's not what I do.
You were drooling over yourself.
I don't do that.
Okay.
I don't try to pin things on me, the things that you do.
We have a break coming up. The full Monty. You talked to Monty, didn't you?
I did.
The full Monty on NASCAR.
We break down the playoffs of the driving persuasion.
Okay, that's coming up.
Welcome back, Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network on what is a Football Friday. It'll be a Football Friday for our friend Monty Dutton, part of the Full Monty, on NASCAR as we go around the NASCAR Monster Energy world. And, of course, the playoffs currently underway right now. They're in New Hampshire for this race this weekend, second leg of the playoffs. Monty, what were your thoughts on the way the playoffs started? Martin Truex Jr. basically returned to form that we had been seeing over the course of most of this season.
Well, this return, I thought that it was, there's always going to be bad races. I thought it was about as bad as a race could be because there never was a time when there was much competition. Even when Chase Elliott won the second segment, that wasn't much of a show either. So it was interesting, like all races are, but it was not by no means. It was Truex was the class of the field, and no amount of misfortune and mistake on pit road was going to deny him that victory because when you pull away and win a race by 7.5 seconds, that's not an example of close competition.
It's interesting looking at the way that this playoff will play itself out because of the fact that you do have guys like Kyle Busch who continue to stay near the top and even guys like Kevin Harvick as well. As far as how the racing style changes in this segment of the season, how does it change when it comes down to these playoff races?
Well, I don't think it changes quite as much as it did because I'm not a big fan of this. I think that the whole format is too complicated for people to understand.
True.
However, I do believe that it takes a good bit of the shot in the dark out of it. I mean, one year in the past, one of the 4 finalists was a driver who didn't win a race all year. And I think that the bonus points that have been accrued during the regular season make a Cinderella story or winning the championship by being extremely fortunate. It can still happen, but I don't think it's nearly as likely as it was before this year. I think that the champion will be more deserving.
Well, it's weird because, there's so much of an emphasis on winning. And we've talked about that in the past about, you want to be able to have a champion that has the requisite amount of wins. But it's still possible for one to kind of get in there without having won a race. And I think that's one of the things that NASCAR wanted to avoid by instituting this format. Have they at least satisfied that goal in your mind?
Well, there's no getting around it. All the points and bonuses and everything in the world, it's still going to come down to 4 drivers dead even for one race. So you can't take the wild. It's still a good chance that one of those 4 might be someone who's not, that's a sort of a lower seed. Like for instance, even though he got penalized and lost his bonus points, Chase Elliott is still on track to advance to the next round. He's with a quality team. He's come close to winning, but he had never won a race. So he could presumably be one of the final 4, and he could presumably win the championship. So you can't take that aspect out of it, but I think as far as getting to the final race, the decks have been stacked more toward people who have been prominent all season long.
Talk with Monty Dutton, our weekly chat about the NASCAR world, joining us here on Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. I think another thing, I like to make the comparison with golf because, golf actually, eliminates members in the field and takes away a lot of the ancillary performers. Is that something you'd like to see NASCAR do and maybe run with a smaller field to at least incentivize these guys more to play for these playoff points?
No, because I think that race fans are used to having 40 cars on the track, and any of those 40 cars can still win the race, even though they can't compete for the championship. And I think if you did something like, there's 16 people to chase.
Right.
If all the other teams went home, they would have a harder time finding sponsorship for next year. But at least in the chase now, have an opportunity by running a good race, putting a scare in the top people, winning one of these races. In most past years, there's been at least one race in the chase that was won by a person who wasn't eligible for the championship. More if you count people eliminated in rounds in recent years. But I just don't think racing fans would be able to get used to having 500 miles with 16 cars on the track. At least when there's 40 of them, they may not win the race, they may not be fast, but they're liable to change. They might wreck some guy who is, or get. I mean, there's an element of excitement that comes from people who've got nothing to lose.
Certainly so. New Hampshire Motor Speedway is the site this week. Who does this track set up for this week, especially for someone who's in the hunt and trying to make himself advance in this postseason?
Well, I think that the real championship favorites, probably certainly you'd have to say Truex and Kyle Busch and Kyle Larson. And then I keep expecting Jimmy Johnson to come alive because he always has in the past. Those drivers, there's no disadvantage or advantage. They're strong everywhere. I think that Denny Hamlin, who is just outside that fringe, is a person who throughout his career is historically adept on flat tracks. And I think that the other person who may be your winner on Sunday is I wouldn't be surprised to see Kevin Harvick have a chase breakthrough in the second race.
We just saw Casey Kane post the top time in the second round of qualifying, basically getting himself in with a very, very good time there of 28.3 on this mile track. He basically is kind of in that outside looking in situation at 15th, trying to get himself to the next round. And interestingly enough, he has a new ride next year. What do you make of not only the season that he's had, but the fact that he is on the move and we know exactly where for 2018?
Well, he doesn't have a prestigious ride. He has a ride where basically I think that the situation is that Rick Hendrick is reluctantly casting him aside and sort of helping him by providing assistance where he's headed. But I think that a strong performance at New Hampshire certainly certainly creates an atmosphere where maybe they can raise more sponsorship dollars for next year. They're going to be selling to people who are coming on board that they'll have assistance from Rick Hendrick, but they're still not a Hendrick Motorsports car. So I think having a splash, even while he's still on Hendrick equipment, maybe top flight Hendrick equipment, would be beneficial because all of those teams that are not going to win a championship, and as I said, Kane he's still alive, but they all, it's the start. These are tough times. A few years ago, the times were economic. Well, now the tough times are more from sponsorship dollars moving away from NASCAR because NASCAR having lost popularity. And so the times are tough now because they're just having a hard time getting sponsors to think that investment is worth it. So how they do down the stretch is crucial for next year for everybody, but particularly people like Kane.
I mean, he's a likable guy. I don't think there's anything wrong with his popularity in my mind. And I think, like you said, it's kind of a chicken and egg thing when it comes down to the sponsorship dollars. Like you said, the economy did what it did over the course of the last couple of years. And now, of course, you're looking at a situation where folks are wanting to invest the money, but it's just a matter of where. And I don't know why, or at least what about him has kept people from wanting to invest in Casey Kane.
Well, he's painfully shy. He's a very likable, nice guy, but but an interview can be an exercise in frustration.
Right.
But he's a nice looking. He's actually one of those people. He's actually not a kid anymore.
Right.
But he's still youthful looking, and he's won 18 races. I was just early this week. I was seeing him disparaged on social media and talking about how, he's won as many races as a lot of guys who are much more prominent than he is.
True. To me, it doesn't make much sense to me, but in that vein, of course, it's interesting to see. Give me a winner this weekend.
I think I'm going to pick Kevin Harvick this weekend. He's one of those guys who he's around. He's competitive every week, and he breaks through from time to time. He's sort of a driver's driver. He absolutely rules Phoenix, which is the course that is most like New Hampshire.
True.
And so I think he's probably viewed and losing at Phoenix. I think I have the opposite feeling than most people. I think that when you've won a bunch of races, that the law of averages work against you. And in places where you've come close but never have, the odds favor you more.
Monty, we're out of time. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you having me. Thanks.
That's Monty Dutton, the full Monty on NASCAR. We'll be back.
Yeah, I tripped, I stumbled, fell lost in disgrace, got myself caught up.
All right, we're back. Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network. A reminder, football Saturday tomorrow. You got a lot of things going on out there and a lot of places that you can turn to get information after the ball game. We want to remind you to include us in that. Will go to Clemson tomorrow.
I'll be there.
Cover the Tigers in Boston College. I'll be at USC and Louisiana Tech. So, of course, during the game, follow along with us on our Twitter feed, SportsTalkSC, and we'll be commenting as things happen during the game. Not going to give you play-by-play, all right? We just don't do that, but we will comment on things as they happen to try to add to your experience. Then after the game, we head down to the locker rooms. We listen. We get our post-game interviews. And then as soon as we get back upstairs, or in my case upstairs, he likes to stay down on the field, we'll do a live Periscope on our Twitter feed, Sports Talk SC, and you can join in to hear what we have to say. And all we're going to do, of course, is offer our overview of the game and then tell you what the people were saying after the game, the head coach and players, any injury updates, anything like that. We can get it to you pretty quickly after the game. And, of course, if you have any questions, you can send it to us on Twitter, and we can answer them right there.
Let's clarify. You also like to stay on the field because you are purchasing the equipment to be able to do yours on the field just like I am.
No, I'll go back upstairs.
Oh, you will?
Yeah. I like to get the stat book. I like to have the stat book in my hand.
You do like the mic, though. The mic is a nice
I will like the mic. Yes, I will like the mic. So we'll have that for you. It's a great way to add to your post-game coverage experience with us here on Sports Talk.
And you'll get an updated injury report so long as the injured player's mother doesn't usurp the head coach after the game.
Now, one thing to know, of course, is I'll be done a lot faster than Will. I will say this. USC has – this is – you don't really care as a fan. You don't really care about this.
They're efficient.
But from a media standpoint, USC has the easiest post-game setup for the media.
Absolutely.
I think I counted it one time from the press box. From my press box seat to the interview room was like 150 steps.
Yeah.
You go down the elevator, you walk just a little bit down through the hall of captains, and you're right there. They bring you the coach and the player. Now, Clemson is a little bit more of a hike, and it's a long wait afterwards for Dabo to come out of the locker room.
It's bad.
Well, I mean, it's just the way they do things. You know, you just have to be patient. You got to. The good thing is
more of an event for them.
Well, but here's the thing: you don't have to rush out of the press box.
Right.
You can practically write your entire story minus the quotes before you go down because there is no rush.
Right.
I'll tell you one time when Clemson beat Florida State a couple of years ago on one of their big games. I was going to cover both sides, and so I went and got Florida State coach Jimbo Fisher, who was doing his interview on the opposite side of the West Zone from where Clemson was doing their thing, and my batteries went dead. And I had enough time
to go up and get
back to the press box, get new batteries, and then walk back down to the Clemson locker room. And they still hadn't come out of the locker room.
That's why I use a charged phone. Corn.
Well, you're just so smart.
I'm savvy.
Sorry, I didn't realize. You must be from New York. You're so smart.
Yeah. You want to play footsie?
No. Let's go on the record. Brian, make sure you're recording. No, I do not want to play footsie with you.
We do not play footsies on Sports Talk.
I want to talk about the games again tomorrow because I haven't been here for a couple of days. So I just want to give you my quick thoughts. I know we had our picks, but I really think Clemson will easily handle Boston College. Watching some video of BC.
Oh, I'm sorry.
They've got a young quarterback. They've got a young center. They have a freshman running back who's pretty highly touted, but they just don't look good. One thing you could count on from BC in recent years was a pretty sound defense. Now, the one defensive end, Harold Landry, is outstanding.
Yeah, that's the one thing that does concern me about them because I think you can put him right on the Clemson offensive right side and have him pick on Tremaine Ankrum and Sean Pollard because he's going to be a next-level player. He's probably the only next-level player on that roster, and he's one guy who, if there is somebody who could take over the game and make something look a little bit askew from the Clemson offensive perspective, it's him.
Yeah, he did lead the nation in sacks last year. He's good. Yeah. I'm surprised he left the SEC, ACC country when he decided to go to Boston College. He was recruited by schools down this way. I just don't see, even when the quarterback could get a throwaway the other day, I mean, he just doesn't look good. Just didn't look good throwing the ball. Now, he's a good young talent, and in time they may develop him into something. But right now, and again, going into that setting as a redshirt freshman with a freshman center, I see all kind of problems. I think Clemson's going to try to get the running game going. They'll probably pop a few big plays, and I think they will cover. Now, South Carolina, they got to look at Louisiana Tech like an SEC team.
Oh, they have to.
They cannot go into this thing thinking, well, number one, Louisiana Tech is not all that bad.
No, they're not.
They don't have the great passing quarterback that they've had in recent years.
Yeah, that's the one thing Skip Holtz said, that they are kind of a rebuilding offensive side of the football, but they're great up front on the defensive side, and they're a little bit of a rebuild secondary, but they've got a good core of players. And, I mean, they've won 9 games each of the last 3 years. They've won 3 consecutive bowls. That's something that they've never done in their history. So this is an experienced club in a lot of ways.
Jamar Smith is the kind of quarterback that can give South Carolina's defense problems. He's mobile, throws it okay, nothing great. They have a defensive end who averages a couple of sacks per game, so South Carolina's offensive tackles had better play well. But, I mean, come on. I think South Carolina at home, after being singed last week, had better come out and should come out and play with a lot of emotion and a lot of energy, and should put this team away, get to 3-1, and prepare to go to Texas A&M with a chance to finish up September. If they get to 4-1, if they can finish 4-1 in September, then that's a lot better than most people thought they would do in the first month.
Not to go too inside football on you, but the one thing that you worry about with a mobile quarterback is whether or not the defensive ends can keep contained. You know, defensive ends for the South Carolina Gamecocks, they love to get upfield, pin their ears back, and try to go get the quarterback. If they can't keep contained, you get them caught upfield against Jamar Smith, that could pose some significant problems, and it could pose some problems, especially on the big bugaboo of the South Carolina D, which has been third down. They were 9 for 16 against them for Kentucky last weekend. That's going to be something that I'm looking for from South Carolina. They not only have to get off the field on third down, but they cannot allow Jamar Smith to scramble and beat them if they lose contain.
You look at the coaching staff. You got Skip Holtz, who was at South Carolina. You got Todd Fitch, who was at South Carolina. You got Rick Petrie, who was at South Carolina. So you got 3 South Carolina connections on that staff, and his quarterback coach is none other than Tim Rattay, one of the best quarterbacks to come out of that program. So, Louisiana Tech is like East Carolina.
Yes.
That you should beat them if you're South Carolina, but you also know that they're dangerous. East Carolina has given South Carolina a lot of battles over the years because their players are just maybe a notch below that SEC, ACC level. This team, Louisiana Tech, is loaded with players from Louisiana and Texas, passed over by the Texas schools and by LSU, but they're probably maybe an inch too small and maybe a second too slow to play at that level.
Yeah, East Carolina, I would say, has a better conference to play in, but I think that Louisiana Tech has got a better footprint to recruit from, like you said, because they are getting a lot of those guys that got looks from the LSUs and the Texases and the Texas A&Ms and the Alabamas and places of that nature. Didn't get to go to those places because they got passed over by other guys, but it's a motivated group, and they put players in the NFL. So this is far from a walkover game for South Carolina, especially with the emotions that were expended and let down from the loss last week.
Well, they better have the traffic right. They better have the toilets working. They better have concessions right, and they better have the flamethrowers working.
I'm going to be very disappointed.
Let me give you a word of advice. Turn on all your gas tanks before you fire up the flamethrowers. And turn up that damn music from that DJ. I want to hear it in the press box.
I'm going to be disappointed on Monday if we do not have a one-on-one with the DJ come Monday.
I don't do DJs. We'll leave that to you or Twitter. That's a social media thing.
I want you to talk to the DJ.
I've never interviewed the Clemson DJ. I'm not interviewing the South Carolina.
Corn goes one-on-one with the man who handles the ones and twos.
Just turn it up loud, baby. Make it roar. Hey, that'll do it. Don't forget the high school scoreboards tonight, 10, 10:30, and 11. We'll see you then. Thank you, Willie P.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Brian. Have a great night, everybody.